So Debbie, you talk about working smarter, not harder. What one tip do you have to improve productivity and profitability?
Within the property management department?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I often share that we're spending 80% of our time managing 20% of the properties, which has a direct correlation to productivity and profits. So I've actually developed something called the Clean Sweep program. And ultimately what that is doing is sitting down and doing a review, an audit or an analysis of your current rent roll. And that is to firstly identify the 20% of those properties. And that is often quite easy to do. In a workshop environment, I get everyone to hold out their hand. You come on, hold out your hand, and then I say to them, okay, I want you to picture all of your difficult landlords and tenants and properties, and you can see 4 Blue Street and Mr. Smith and 5 Green Street. I mean, you know the ones that are consuming all your time. And then I get them to scrunch them up and the bricks crumble and their bones, and then you throw them on the ground and tell them to go away. But when I train, I guess that business owners are sort of a little bit taken back going, well, Deb, we're not going to throw away 20% of our rent roll, because that's not only income, but that's an asset value as well. So the Clean Sweep program is a number of different options that you have, but I think it is so important to take the time to do this. I had one business owner, and he would come to our conference in June on the Gold Coast every single year, and I would often share this concept. And it took him 2 or 3 years until I got a telephone call, and he said to me, Deb, oh my goodness, I can't believe it has taken me 3 years to finally introduce your Clean Sweep program, but it has transformed my business, it's transformed my profits, my productivity, and the culture and the morale of the team. Because property managers get overwhelmed and stressed if they've got constant maintenance, constant arrears, constant disputes, going to court, going to the tribunal. So if we're not going to take those 20% and get rid of them, what are we going to do? So the next step after you've identified them is then, and there'll be a common thread. I guarantee if you've got a list of 20 properties, the common thread will be...
Low management fee?
Could be low management fee, yeah.
Low management fee, older house. So either older house that's run down or difficult tenancy.
Yep. Yep, definitely. So it's either difficult landlord, difficult tenant, poorly maintained, owner won't maintain the property. If the property's not maintained, it's just a knock-on effect. If the property's not maintained, then it's going to attract a less quality tenant. That less quality tenant is not going to respect the property as much.
Yep.
And then you're going to end up with high tenancy turnovers. And the higher the tenancy turnovers, the more wear and tear on the property there is. So I guess my suggestion would be sit down, write the list of properties out, and then appoint someone within the agency to pick up the phone and start calling every single one of those landlords. Now, once again, I'm realistic, and I do understand on a national scale, the landlords that we are dealing with are not multimillionaires, they're not global corporations, they're often struggling mum and dads with mortgages. So it is a bit of a tricky situation, but I would be making the call. Damien, hi, Deb from PPM, just touching base because we're doing a review of all of the properties on our rent roll. And our focus as your managing agent is we want to ensure that your property is appreciating, rather than depreciating, and we are maximising your income. And we've identified your property as a concern.
Yep.
So what we would recommend is improving and renovating the property. Now, if you're at this stage as well, you're in a reactive phase of management, because if you're being proactive, this should be discussed with the owner during routine inspections. And that's probably another tip with routine inspections as well, is the fact that they're not multimillionaires, is prepare them in the feedback with the routine inspection. Say to them, in the next 12 months, budget to replace the carpet, or in the next 12 months, budget to paint the walls. Because if you get to a tenant vacating the property and you say, okay, we need $6,000 to renovate and improve the property, they're going to go, unless they've got equity in their home, they're going to go, we can't afford that. So you would then discuss with them renovating and improving it, and then, as I said, you would talk to them about the pros and cons, that it's attracting poor quality tenants, everything I just mentioned. Now, 9 times out of 10, they'll go, look, can't afford to renovate. So the next step of the clean sweep process would be to suggest, Mr. Smith, Damien, whoever you're talking to, have you considered potentially selling the property, and we can market it to an investor or a developer that can renovate and improve the property, and then we can reinvest that and find you a good quality investment property with solid bricks and mortar that is going to show a better return, and it's not going to be as financially draining for you. And that's what these calls are about, is generating more income between, once again, your 4 walls. Ultimately, that could be 2 more sales, 2 more investors. But then what happens? Okay, can't afford to renovate, don't want to sell the property. So your next step then is to evaluate the situation, and then say, well, look, Damien, we've also done a time analysis on managing your property, and we're spending 3 times the amount of time managing your property in comparison to the average property. So what we're going to, and once again, this is all thought-provoking, it's up to you. So Damien, we're going to have to look at increasing your management fee, because we are managing the property at a loss. The next one, depending on the condition of the property, like if it's a high risk, you've got exposure to litigation or slip and falls, might be to terminate that one property there and then. And then the final one is, depending on the percentage of difficult properties and landlords and tenants you have, if it's substantial, what you could also do is bundle that up. Let's say it's 50 properties. You can bundle that up and actually sell that part of the rent roll. Now, you might go, well, Deb, who wants to buy that part of the rent roll? But there's rent rolls, and that's part of what we do as well. We do rent roll classifieds and due diligence. Rent rolls are selling like hotcakes, as long as, I mean, regional is probably a little bit more of a struggle, but if it's inside regional CBD, a lot of businesses are looking for small rent rolls just to balance out, cover their expenses, have enough properties for that additional team member. Why is the rent roll being sold? It could be that you want a cash injection into the business. But ultimately what the Clean Sweep program is about is identifying the time-consuming properties, being proactive, trying to fix it, to eliminate it, because ultimately if we get rid of those 20% of the properties, we should have 80% more time to focus on growing the rent roll with quality properties, which in theory never ever happens, because it's human nature that even if you got rid of those 20 properties, they would still fill up the time. But don't be like the client that rang me 3 years after he learnt about the concept. Like everyone listening today, make the decision to sit down and identify those properties.